The 19th century was a turbulent time for the Spanish. Numerous coups and uprisings saw power change hands between the monarchy and a republic and back again. The problems continued into the 20th century, and to combat the threat of communism, Spain was placed under a military dictatorship in the 20s. However, support for Rivera waned and many Spanish welcomed a second republic in 1931, led by Alcalá Zamora. They were obviously a little more liberal than the rulers that preceded them, but they came to power just as the world plunged into an economic depression. So the situation was still pretty volatile. For instance, the socialists lost the election in 1933 and the communists organised huge strikes in the north of Spain, and they were only suppressed when the armed forces, led by Franco, were sent in. After over a century of uprisings, Spain was a very divided nation in 1936. There were liberal republicans, monarchist, both Carlist and Alfonsoist, Catholic conservatives, communist anarchist, Basque and Catalan nationalists, and phalangists, far-right nationalists inspired by fascist movements in Italy and Germany, and led by the son of the former military dictator. In 1936, the Progressive Popular Front, a coalition of left-wing groups, won the election. The right wing in the military began to organise a resistance. Rumours of a coup forced the government to send military officers to Spain's islands and colonies, and some political figures were arrested. However, it didn't stop the right-wing groups from forming alliances, and on July 18th, the military rebelled. They thought their victory would be quick. However, they were met by the Spanish people, who stormed barracks and gathered arms. Also, shortly after the rebellion, the rebel leaders, Emilio Mola and José Sanjuaro, died, and this made Franco the leader of the nationalists as they were now called. To further complicate matters, Franco was trapped in Spanish Morocco by the navy, who remained loyal to the Republic. However, German and Italian planes were flown in to airlift his army over the Straits of Gibraltar. Fascist dictators like Hitler, Salazar and Mussolini all sent aid, troops and weapons. The civil war then became a testing ground for fascist troops and became part of a wider international struggle, the fight between fascists, communists and liberals. However, many British businessmen and MPs sympathised with Franco, the French feared angering their own military, and American corporations favoured Franco as well. They, in turn, all signed an agreement of non-intervention. Yet the Republicans were not alone. The Mexicans and Soviets did send weaponry, albeit inferior to the weaponry fascist governments were sending. At the end of the initial rebellion, the nationalists had seized Spanish Morocco and parts of mainland Spain. However, the Republican and their anarchist and communist allies managed to hold on to the Basque regions, Madrid and the East Coast. Chaos around the city subsided within the following weeks as militias were organised, but the nationalists began to march on Madrid. The fall of the city seemed imminent, so the government fled to Valencia. However, the poorly trained Republican forces found a plan of attack on a dead officer, and volunteers from around the world began to arrive in Madrid. The poorly trained troops were then able to hold off the nationalist advance into the capital. The following March, a nationalist and Italian force was defeated in Guadalajara, putting an end to the invasion of Madrid temporarily. However, over the past year, campaigns in central and southern Spain put the nationalists in control of cities like Cordoba, Toledo and Granada. Franco then turned his attention to the Basque region in the north. German bombers devastated the town of Guernica. The event has been made infamous thanks to Picasso's painting. The Republicans failed to stop Franco's onslaught, and he took both Bilbao and Santander in the summer of 1937. Meanwhile, there was infighting amongst the anti-Franco groups in Catalonia. A communist group named POUM thought the Republicans were undermining class consciousness and fought back. They were promptly defeated and the group was made illegal. However, their actions knocked the spirit of Catalonian resistance. In March 1938, the nationalists then launched a major offensive into Catalonia itself. Over 100,000 men and hundreds of German and Italian bombers fought their way through to the Mediterranean Sea, cutting the Republican territories in half. Meanwhile, Britain and France, the Republicans' last hope, met with Hitler in 1938 and gave him Czechoslovakia. This policy of appeasement showed that the democracies were not willing to break the non-intervention agreement, and no extra troops or weaponry was going to come the Republicans' way. The international brigades were withdrawn shortly afterwards, and with fresh supplies from the Nazis, Franco's troops took Barcelona in 1939 and Madrid in March. On the 1st of April 1939, the Spanish Civil War officially came to an end, and Spain was put under the brutal dictatorship of Franco.